Imagine this. It's late at night in Poland. Most people are asleep, the towns are quiet, and the only glow in the countryside comes from the soft hum of street lamps. But in one military radar room, a green blip suddenly appears, then another. Alarms go off. A drone has crossed the border. Not the kind you see filming weddings or tracking crop yields. This one belongs to the Russian military. For Poland, that's a nightmare scenario. They're not just anyone on the map. They're a NATO member, which means if something goes wrong, the fallout doesn't stop at the border. At first glance, it almost sounds trivial. A drone, really? But every time one of these things drifts into Polish skies, fighter jets are scrambled, officials issue late-night statements, and people across Europe ask themselves, is this just a mistake, or is it a warning? And that's where the story gets unsettling. Because history has shown us, especially in Eastern Europe, that the smallest sparks, an archduke's assassination, a border skirmish, even a misread radar, can ignite something much bigger. Spoiler, this isn't just about buzzing drones. It's about old scars, nervous neighbors, and the world's most stressful case of your fence or mine. Think of it like the neighbor who keeps tossing pebbles over your wall. Except the neighbor is Russia, and the pebbles come with wings and explosives. For Poland, those pebbles aren't just annoying. They're reminders that life on Europe's eastern edge has never been quiet for long. And what happened on that night, with just a few blips on a radar, is only the beginning of the story. On the surface, the story begins with a few dots on a radar screen. But what followed was anything but routine. Polish air defenses picked up multiple drones crossing from the east, some from Belarus, others suspected to have originated in Russian territory. These weren't accidental hobbyist flights. They were military drones, flying without clearance, in restricted airspace. Within minutes, Poland scrambled fighter jets. Sirens sounded at bases across the country, and NATO surveillance systems in nearby nations logged the incursions too. For the people living in border towns, it meant watching the night sky fill with strange shapes and hearing the distant rumble of jets overhead, unsettling, even if nothing exploded. The Polish government wasted no time. Officials confirmed the breaches, summoned emergency briefings, and made it clear that any threat to their skies would be taken seriously. Warsaw called on NATO allies for support, knowing that in moments like this, unity matters as much as missiles. And how did Moscow respond? With a straight face and a shrug. Russian officials denied intentional violations, chalking them up to navigation errors, a claim that, let's be honest, doesn't hold much water. You don't accidentally steer drones into another country multiple times. That's like saying you accidentally drove your car into your neighbor's living room twice. Yeah, because GPS just goes, oops, wrong continent. Totally believable. Next, they'll tell us the drones were just sightseeing Krakow. The real headache isn't the denial. It's the fact that every incursion forces a response. Jets don't scramble for free. Soldiers don't stay on high alert without cost, and civilians don't sleep easily when the night sky hums with foreign machines. Each drone, whether armed or not, is a reminder that Poland's border is more than just a line on a map. It's the front line of Europe's biggest security gamble. And when that line gets crossed, the whole continent feels the tremor. To understand why these drone incursions are such a big deal, you have to look at Poland not just as a country on the map, but as a crossroads, and sometimes a battleground, of European history. Start with geography. Poland sits right on NATO's eastern flank, sharing borders with Belarus, Ukraine, and Russia's heavily militarized enclave of Kaliningrad. That means it isn't just another member of the alliance, it's the tripwire. If something crosses Poland's border, it doesn't just enter Polish airspace. It brushes directly against NATO itself. And that matters, because Poland isn't new to this kind of pressure. Its entire history reads like a crash course in what happens when you're stuck between bigger powers, carved up in the partitions of the 18th century, occupied during World War II, pulled behind the Iron Curtain in the Cold War. Poland has lived through centuries of being told where its borders are and who controls them. Poland isn't just another country on the map. It's Europe's buffer zone, shield, and sometimes punching bag, all rolled into one. Today, Poland has flipped the script. Instead of being the weak link, it's become one of NATO's strongest. It spends big on defense, fields a modern military, and has taken a leading role in supporting Ukraine. Since the invasion began, Poland has sent weapons, opened its borders to millions of refugees, and turned into a logistical hub for Western aid flowing east. That support hasn't gone unnoticed in Moscow. From the Kremlin's point of view, Poland isn't just a neighbor helping Ukraine, it's an accomplice, a problem, maybe even an obstacle worth testing. But for ordinary Europeans, Poland is more than just politics. It's a line of defense. The idea is simple. If Poland is secure, Europe feels secure. If Poland is rattled, the rest of the continent gets nervous fast. So when Russian drones slip over the border, the fear isn't just about what's in the sky, it's about what Poland represents. A frontline state with a past full of scars, a present full of responsibility, and a future that could shape the stability of the entire region. If the Cold War was all about tanks, missiles, and fighter jets, today's conflicts have added a new player to the mix: drones. Cheap, expendable, and surprisingly effective. They've become the Swiss Army knives of modern warfare. Some are the size of a small car, carrying explosives and designed to hit hard targets. Others are as small as a backpack, zipping quietly through the sky to spy on enemy movements. They don't cost much compared to a fighter jet or missile, which means they can be sent out in swarms. Lose one? Send 5 more. For militaries, drones are like a low-cost way to poke and prod without risking a pilot's life. For countries like Poland, though, that's exactly what makes them dangerous. A single drone crossing the border may not do much damage on its own, but it forces a reaction. Air defenses have to track it, jets may need to scramble, and governments have to figure out how to respond without tipping over into open conflict. And then there's the uncertainty. Is this drone here to spy? To test defenses? Or is it carrying explosives? Until it's intercepted, nobody knows. That ambiguity keeps everyone on edge. Think of drones like mosquitos. One bite might not ruin your day, but the buzzing keeps you up at night. And the worst part? You never know which one's carrying something nasty. This is why Russian drones sneaking into Poland hit differently than just random air traffic. They're a reminder that war isn't only fought on the battlefield anymore. It's fought in the spaces in between. Those gray areas where a buzzing machine can cause panic, rack up costs, and test alliances, all without firing a shot. Here's where things get tricky. NATO isn't just a club of countries that meet for coffee once a year. It's a military alliance built on a simple promise. If you attack one member, you attack them all. That's Article 5. The famous clause that makes NATO both reassuring to its members and terrifying to its rivals. But in practice, it's not a light switch. Article 5 doesn't mean that if a single drone crosses into Poland, suddenly every NATO country fires up the tanks and marches east. It means consultation, debate, and then a collective response. And collective responses, they're messy. Poland, the Baltic states, and other countries close to Russia's shadow tend to argue for a tough line. Respond firmly, show strength, don't let Moscow get comfortable crossing boundaries. Then there are countries like Germany or France, who often push for caution. To them, overreacting to drones could turn a dangerous situation into a catastrophic one. And the United States? Well, America's role is always complicated. Washington knows it's the cornerstone of NATO's muscle. But with elections looming and global crises piling up, the US isn't exactly eager to stumble into World War III over a drone. The result? A constant balancing act. NATO wants to show unity and strength, but it also doesn't want to escalate. Every drone incident forces leaders into late-night calls, closed-door meetings, and carefully worded statements that try to walk the tightrope between "Don't mess with us," and "Let's all take a deep breath." This is basically the world's most stressful school assignment. Half the group wants to ace it, the other half just wants to pass, and somehow the grade decides if the planet stays in one piece. Past events don't make the choice easier. In 2015, Turkey shot down a Russian fighter jet that violated its airspace, nearly dragging NATO into a full-on crisis. Leaders remember that moment vividly. The danger of quick reactions colliding with unpredictable consequences. So when a Russian drone drifts into Poland, NATO faces a decision that's less about hardware and more about psychology. Do you swat it down immediately and risk escalation? Or do you hold back, issue warnings, and risk looking weak? Neither option is comfortable, but those are the choices when your alliance is built on both unity and restraint. For Poland, every drone feels like a test. For NATO, it's a test with no easy answers. Because drones don't just wander into NATO territory by accident. Behind every buzzing speck in the Polish sky is a bigger question. What's Moscow trying to achieve? One possibility is simple: testing the waters. By slipping drones over the border, Russia gauges NATO's response. Do jets scramble instantly? Do leaders issue fiery statements? Or do they shrug it off? Each incident is a data point. A way for the Kremlin to measure how far it can push without sparking a full-scale reaction. Another motive is punishment. Poland has been one of Ukraine's loudest and strongest backers since the invasion began. Billions in aid, a constant flow of weapons, and millions of Ukrainian refugees welcomed across the border. To Russia, that's not just generosity, that's hostility. Drones over Poland may be Moscow's way of saying, "We see you, we don't like you, and we can make your life difficult." There's also the domestic angle. Russian leaders thrive on projecting strength to their own people. State media can spin drone flights as proof that Russia isn't afraid of NATO, that it can poke at the West and get away with it. It plays into the narrative of Russia as the defiant underdog, standing up to a hostile world. And let's not forget the gray zone strategy. Russia has long operated in that murky space between peace and war. Cyber attacks, disinformation campaigns, little green men in Crimea. Drones over Poland fit perfectly into that playbook. They don't trigger Article 5 on their own, but they keep NATO uneasy, divided, and distracted. Classic toxic X behavior. They don't want you back, but they can't resist messing with your life just enough to keep you stressed. In the end, Russia doesn't need drones to blow anything up to achieve its goal. The point is the tension itself, the constant buzzing reminder that the line between harassment and escalation is thin, and that Moscow is the one deciding when to cross it. So where does this all go? Well, pick your adventure. Scenario 1, the fast trigger. Poland decides enough is enough. The next drone that crosses the border gets blown out of the sky without hesitation. NATO backs the move, jets scramble faster, and suddenly every buzzing speck in the sky is fair game. Moscow grumbles, but maybe, just maybe, decides to cool it. Best case, the message lands: "Don't mess with Polish airspace." Worst case, one of those drones was carrying more than just a camera, and now you've got a diplomatic firestorm lighting up every news channel on Earth. Press X to shoot down the drone. Achievement unlocked. World War anxiety +10. Scenario 2, the escalation spiral. This time a drone doesn't just buzz the border. It crashes into something important. Maybe a power line, maybe a farmhouse, maybe worse. Suddenly, what was once harmless becomes an attack. NATO leaders huddle, phones ring all night, and the headlines shift from tensions to crisis. Nobody wants a war, but the momentum starts pulling everyone closer to one. It's the scenario no one wants, but also the one history warns us about. Scenario 3, the oops are bad. Moscow pulls out the old playbook. Blame technical glitches, navigation errors, or rogue operators. They quietly dial back the flights, letting things simmer down. Poland still isn't happy. but the sky's calm, for now. It's the equivalent of your neighbor finally pulling their kid out of your yard, mumbling something about boys will be boys. The reality, of course, we'll probably land somewhere between these paths. Not total calm, not all-out war, but a long, exhausting middle ground where drones keep buzzing, NATO keeps debating, and everyone keeps holding their breath. In the end, these drones aren't just blips on a radar. They're reminders that history here is restless, that borders are fragile, and that even the smallest buzz in the sky can echo across an entire continent. Wild to think the next world crisis might start with something that looks like a flying lawnmower. Funny, yeah, but not a joke Poland can afford to laugh at. For them, it's not background noise. It's the front line of Europe's biggest gamble. And for the rest of us, it's proof that the world's quietest moments can hide the loudest consequences. All right, that's it for today's deep dive. If you enjoyed hanging out, don't forget to give this video a like. It really helps more people find it. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss the next story we dig into. And hey, if this drone drama kept you hooked, you'll definitely want to check out our breakdown of Southwest's controversial new policy. Totally different story, but the same mix of chaos, big stakes, and people asking, wait, can they actually do that? Be sure to check it out, and I'll meet you in the next adventure.